Did you know that hundreds of elderly homeowners in the UK are being left homeless after gifting their homes to their children? It may sound shocking, even unthinkable, but it's happening more and more. Parents, often in retirement, hand over the family home in good faith, only to find themselves pushed out, cut off, or unable to access vital benefits. What was meant to be a generous act becomes a devastating loss of control. In many cases, the gift was made with the best of intentions, to avoid inheritance tax, speed up probate, or simply help the kids out. But what many retirees don't realize is that under UK law, a deed of gift is irreversible. Once the property is transferred, you lose all legal rights to it. If your child divorces, falls into debt, or just changes their mind, you could be evicted from the very home you built your life in. And if you later need care, gifting your house could also disqualify you from state-funded support under the deprivation of assets rule. In this video, we're revealing the 10 hidden risks of gifting your home in the UK and what to do instead to protect your independence, benefits, and future. If you or someone you love is thinking about passing on their property, you need to watch this first. What you don't know could cost you your home, pension, and peace of mind. Number 1. You lose legal control over the property. When you gift your home to your children in the UK, whether through a deed of gift, transfer of title, or even a trust arrangement, you may think you're doing something generous and practical. But what many retirees don't realize is that this act can strip you of all legal rights to the property. You may still live there, pay the bills, and call it home, but in the eyes of the law, you're just a guest. If your name is no longer on the land registry, then you have no ownership, no control, and no say in what happens to the home, even if you've lived in it for 40 years. One heartbreaking case in Kent involved a widow who transferred her home to her only son to avoid inheritance tax and future paperwork. For a while, everything seemed fine, but after he got into financial trouble, he decided to remortgage the property without her knowledge. Later, when he couldn't keep up with the repayments, the bank repossessed the house. She was given a few weeks to vacate and had nowhere to go. Her mistake wasn't in trusting her son. It was in legally giving up her only asset without protection. This isn't just about ownership, it's about independence. When you lose legal control over your home, you lose your safety net. You could be evicted, or the property could be sold from under you. That's why solicitors strongly advise against gifting property without securing a right to reside clause or setting up a life interest trust, which ensures you cannot be removed or displaced. Before making any decisions, consult a qualified solicitor and a financial advisor who understands property law and long-term care planning. Because in the UK, once you hand over legal ownership, you can't simply take it back. Number 2. Family relationships can change. You may have the best relationship in the world with your children today, but life has a way of changing things. People grow apart, partners come into the picture, tensions build, and disagreements happen. When you gift your home, you're making a permanent legal decision based on a temporary emotional state. Once your name is off the deeds, your control is gone, regardless of how your relationship with your child might change in the future. There was a case in Manchester where an elderly couple transferred ownership of their home to their daughter, trusting her completely. Things were fine for years, until she married someone who didn't want the parents living in his house. Arguments followed, and eventually, the daughter changed the locks while the couple were away visiting family. They returned to find their belongings boxed at the door, and legally, there was little they could do. Their home was no longer theirs, and they had no written agreement securing their right to stay. These stories are not just isolated incidents. They are quiet tragedies playing out across the UK. Even in loving families, emotions can change. Financial pressures, divorce, or outside influences can quickly turn goodwill into tension. That's why experts always recommend putting legal protections in place, like a right to reside agreement or life interest trust, before transferring property. If you must gift your home, don't rely on trust alone. Rely on the law to protect your future, because relationships may come and go, but your right to a safe and secure home should never be negotiable. Number 3. Financial trouble or bankruptcy of the child. No matter how responsible your child may be, life can throw unexpected challenges their way. Job losses, failed businesses, divorce, mounting debt. All of these can lead to bankruptcy or legal action. And if your home is now legally in their name, it's at risk too. Once you've gifted your property, it becomes part of your child's financial portfolio, and it's fair game for creditors, even if you're still living in it. Take the example of a retired man in Birmingham who gifted his home to his son to help him get ahead. A few years later, the son's business collapsed, and he was forced into bankruptcy. Because he legally owned the house, the insolvency practitioner listed it as an asset. The father had no legal claim and no formal right to stay. The house was sold to repay debts, and the father was given 30 days to move out. It wasn't malice, it was just the law doing what the law does. This is why legal experts in the UK warn against gifting property without safeguards. Your child may never intend to put you in harm's way, but their financial life can directly affect your security if the house is no longer in your name. Before considering a transfer, speak to a solicitor about protective options like placing the property in a trust or retaining a legal charge or interest in the property. That way, even if your child faces financial difficulty, your right to remain in your home is protected, because your retirement security shouldn't depend on someone else's luck. Number 4. You could be evicted from your own home. It's hard to imagine being forced out of the very home you worked your entire life to own. But in the UK, if you've legally gifted your home to someone else, even your own child, and you haven't secured the right to stay in writing, you could be asked to leave, and there's nothing you can do about it. In the eyes of the law, you're no longer the homeowner. You're a tenant at best and a guest at worst. One case in Essex involved a retired woman who gifted her home to her daughter after a health scare, hoping to simplify her affairs. At first, things were fine, but after a disagreement between the daughter and her partner, things soured. The daughter told her mother she needed space and gave her notice to move out. Shocked and heartbroken, the woman sought legal advice, only to be told she had no right to stay, no tenancy agreement, and no recourse. She ended up moving into a council flat with barely any notice. It's a terrifying but very real possibility. That's why solicitors in the UK strongly advise against transferring property without signing a right to reside clause or a formal life interest agreement. These legal tools give you the right to live in the property for the rest of your life, regardless of who owns it. If you don't have that protection in writing, you're relying solely on trust. And as many tragic stories show, trust alone isn't enough. Your home is more than an asset. It's your shelter, your independence, and your peace. Don't give it away without protecting your place in it. Number 5. It can affect your eligibility for state pension support or care funding. When you gift your home in the UK, especially later in life, it may feel like a smart and generous decision, but it can create serious consequences when it comes to means-tested benefits and social care support. Many retirees don't realize that giving away a valuable asset like a house can disqualify them from support provided by the state, particularly when they need it most. This is because of a legal principle known as deprivation of assets. Under UK law, if you transfer your home to someone else, even your children, and then apply for help with care home fees or other benefits, the local authority can look back and determine that you deliberately gave away your property to avoid paying for care. If they believe that's the case, they'll treat you as if you still own the property, even if it's legally no longer in your name. This means your request for funding can be denied, and you'll be expected to cover care costs privately, which can amount to thousands of pounds each month. One elderly woman in Derby gave her home to her son at age 72, assuming it would help avoid inheritance tax. A few years later, she suffered a stroke and needed long-term residential care. When the council reviewed her financial records, they ruled it was a case of deliberate deprivation and declined to fund her care. With no home and no money, the family faced enormous emotional and financial pressure. The son ended up taking out loans just to cover basic care services. All of this could have been avoided with proper legal planning. Before gifting any large asset, especially your home, it's critical to seek advice from a qualified solicitor or financial advisor. There are legal ways to plan for future care and still support your family, such as placing the property in trust or using equity release under the right conditions. But if you give away your home without considering the long-term impact, you may be unintentionally giving away your right to affordable care and financial protection in retirement. Number 6. You can't reverse the decision easily. Gifting your home to your children might seem like a straightforward and heartfelt decision, but what most people don't realize is this: once you've transferred ownership, it's incredibly difficult and often impossible to reverse. In the UK, once your name is off the title deeds, the legal ownership is no longer yours. Even if things go wrong, you can't simply change your mind and take it back. The house legally belongs to someone else, and you've given up your rights. One painful example comes from a retired couple in Kent. They transferred their property to their daughter, trusting her completely. Years later, After a family argument, the daughter decided she no longer wanted them living there. The couple asked her to transfer the home back, but she refused. They tried to pursue legal action, but because there was no formal written agreement securing their right to stay or recover the home, they had no legal case. The daughter eventually sold the house, and the couple was forced to move into rented accommodation. Their mistake wasn't trusting their daughter, it was giving away their home without protections. Even if your child is willing to return the property, reversing a transfer can involve complex legal steps, including paying stamp duty again, resolving mortgage or tax implications, and potentially triggering capital gains tax. It can also create suspicion with the local authority if care funding is ever needed in future, possibly viewed as financial manipulation. This is why estate planners and solicitors strongly advise against making any irreversible decisions without detailed legal guidance. Instead of gifting your home outright, consider alternatives like a life interest trust, which allows your children to inherit the property eventually while giving you the right to live in it for life, or include conditions in the transfer deed, such as a legal right to reside. Once your home is gone, it's not just bricks and mortar you've handed over, it's your stability, control, and often your ability to change course. In retirement, decisions should be permanent only when protections are permanent too. Number 7. It can trigger inheritance tax or capital gains issues. Many retirees in the UK believe that gifting their home to their children will help them avoid inheritance tax, IHT, or make things easier down the line. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. In fact, transferring your home too early can create unexpected tax problems, not just for you, but for your children as well. The two biggest traps: inheritance tax and capital gains tax, CGT. Let's break it down. If you gift your property and continue living in it rent-free, HMRC considers it a gift with reservation of benefit. This means that even though your name is no longer on the deeds, the property is still included in your estate when you pass away. So, if the home's value pushes your estate over the £325,000 threshold, or £500,000 with a residence nil rate ban, your children could still face a 40% inheritance tax bill on the home. You may have gone through all that trouble, only for the tax man to take a huge chunk anyway. Then there's capital gains tax. If your child later decides to sell the property and it wasn't their main residence, they could owe thousands in CGT on any profit made since the date of transfer. One man in Leeds inherited his mother's home early, lived elsewhere, and sold it years later, only to face a CGT bill of over £25,000. It came as a complete shock. They never planned for it because the mother believed gifting the house would be tax-free and straightforward. Tax laws are complex and always changing. That's why it's essential to speak to a solicitor or tax advisor before making any decisions about transferring property. There may be smarter ways to reduce inheritance tax, such as setting up a trust, using your annual gift allowances, or incorporating your home into a proper estate plan. Don't assume that giving your home away now will save tax later. In many cases, it could create a much bigger bill. Protect your legacy by getting it right the first time. Number 8. It can cause conflict between siblings. When you gift your home to one child, even with the best intentions, you may be unintentionally planting the seed for future conflict. Sibling disputes over property are one of the most common sources of family breakdowns in the UK, especially when there's no clear legal structure in place. What starts as a loving gesture can easily spiral into jealousy, mistrust, and even court battles, long after you're gone. One real example comes from a family in Sheffield. A widowed father transferred his house to his eldest son, who had been helping with his care. The two other children assumed the home would be shared equally in the will, but the father never updated it, believing the house would be handled fairly later on. When he passed away, the eldest son claimed the house as his alone, legally backed by the property title. The siblings were devastated and took the matter to court, spending years in a bitter legal dispute. The result? A fractured family, legal bills in the tens of thousands, and a legacy of resentment that outlived the father's memory. This type of outcome isn't rare, and it's not about greed. It's about clarity, fairness, and expectations. When one child receives a large gift, especially a home, others may feel excluded, undervalued, or suspicious, even if they don't say so at the time. That's why it's so important to plan openly and legally. If you intend to help one child early, consider writing a declaration of intent or amending your will to reflect the gift. Even better, consult a solicitor to create a formal agreement that outlines what the arrangement is, why it's being done, and how it will be handled within your wider estate. Gifting property may feel personal, but it has very real legal and emotional consequences. Your family's unity may depend on how clearly you handle it. Don't leave behind confusion and resentment. Leave behind clarity and peace. Number 9. You may be excluded from future decisions. One of the most overlooked risks of gifting your home is that you may completely lose your say in how it's used, managed, or changed. Once you're no longer the legal owner, you have no legal right to be involved in decisions about the property, even if you still live there. That means your child can sell it, rent it out, renovate it, or even take out a loan against it, all without your consent. Take the case of a retired man in Southampton who transferred his house to his daughter. He continued living in the home, assuming nothing would change. But a few years later, his daughter decided to build an extension and rent out part of the property as an Airbnb to earn extra income. Strangers began coming and going, noise levels increased, and the father felt increasingly uncomfortable. But when he asked her to stop, she reminded him, legally, it was her house. He had no say and no legal protections. What had once been a peaceful retirement became a daily source of stress and anxiety. Unfortunately, these types of situations are entirely legal. Once your name is off the deeds, you're not the decision maker anymore. That's why experts always recommend putting formal agreements in place before any property transfer. This could include a right to reside clause, which legally protects your ability to live in the property, and may include stipulations about changes, rental arrangements, or selling. Alternatively, you can set up a trust that gives your children future ownership, while still allowing you to retain control over key decisions while you're alive. It's not just about keeping the house, it's about keeping your voice, your peace of mind, and your dignity. Retirement is supposed to be a time when you live life on your terms. Don't risk giving that up just because something feels easier on paper. If you're going to give away your home, make sure your rights don't disappear with the title. Number 10. It can jeopardize your safety and independence. At the heart of every retirement is one simple wish: to live with safety, dignity, and independence. Your home plays a massive role in that. It's not just a building. It's your private space, your routine, and often your last stronghold of personal freedom. But when you gift your home to your children without proper legal protection, you risk losing all of that. And once it's gone, getting it back is rarely possible. One elderly man in Glasgow gifted his home to his son, believing it would be the easiest way to avoid probate and keep things simple. Over time, his son began to bring friends over regularly, change locks without notice, and restrict visitors. The father, once the owner of the home, was now confined to a single room, completely dependent on his son for food and access to care. There was no abuse on paper, nothing that would raise flags, just a quiet, slow loss of power and independence. When the man finally asked a solicitor for help, he was told, "You have no rights to this property anymore." This kind of situation is tragically common, and it rarely starts with bad intentions. But life changes. People get stressed, partners come into the picture, and priorities shift. If you've given away your home without securing a formal right to live there, make decisions, or set boundaries, you're living at the mercy of someone else. That's a frightening reality, especially when you're older, vulnerable, or in declining health. That's why every expert in estate planning and elder law will tell you, never gift your home without a legal safety net. Use a life interest trust, register a right to reside, or set clear boundaries through legally binding agreements. Your home is your foundation, and your foundation should be strong enough to carry you through every stage of life. Protect it wisely, and you protect not just your asset, but your future independence and well-being. Clapperboard conclusion: protect your home, protect your future. You've just seen 10 powerful and sometimes painful reasons why gifting your home to your children too soon can be one of the biggest financial mistakes you'll ever make. It's a decision made out of love, and that's what makes it so risky. Because when emotions lead and paperwork follows later, or not at all, it opens the door to legal traps, tax issues, family disputes, and even homelessness. From losing legal control of your property, to facing unexpected inheritance tax or capital gains tax, to finding yourself excluded from future care decisions or even evicted, the risks are very real. These aren't just rare horror stories. They're situations happening right now in ordinary homes across the UK, to people who simply wanted to do the right thing. And here's the most important part: almost all of these outcomes are preventable. With the right advice, legal protections, and planning, you can still support your children, pass on your legacy, and protect your home without sacrificing your safety, independence, or peace of mind. Whether that means setting up a life interest trust, including a right to reside clause, or exploring alternative estate planning tools, the key is to make informed decisions, not rushed ones. So before you sign anything or transfer ownership, stop. Ask yourself, do I truly understand the consequences of this decision? Have I spoken to a solicitor or financial advisor who specializes in later life planning? Do I have my own interests protected in writing, not just promises? Because once your home is gone, it's gone. And rebuilding that security isn't easy when you're older, on a fixed income, or in need of care.